Hello, everyone. I am Steve Wolfson, and today I am giving a talk on learning to be okay with what is, even when wishing it was something else. And this talk is part of my ongoing series this channel is filled with astrological wisdom. You can learn from some brilliant astrologers on this channel. Over the last number of years, my focus has become more and more on what I call applying the astrology to your life, to my life. In other words, how do I make the changes that I want to make? The main focus of this is we only know how to think in certain ways. We are deeply conditioned from our childhoods, past lives, childhoods, and we've learned, and we kind of keep repeating the same issues, circumstances, situations, because we continue to look at life in more or less the same way. How do we change this? How do we heal this? It's much more than a mental thing, as most people that have been on a growth path for any length of time have come to conclude. It's happening in my life this week. No matter how much I have grown, no matter how much I understand, no matter how many spiritual experiences I have had, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, there are times when I am taken over by subconscious attitudes, beliefs, wounds, pain that exist inside of me. And this can pop up with people that I deeply care about, that I start behaving based on something that they do or say that is not particularly caring. So what is all this? How do we deal with it? Where is it coming from? What do I do about it? Not sure if I mentioned it. The second part of the talk is called learning to be okay with what is, even when wishing it was something else. So I can tell you in words, a mental concept, which, you can memorize this, and in and of itself, it's not going to change anything, but it's like a starting point. Most people that are interested in a talk like this are very sensitive people. Many of us are what some people call old souls, sensitive, empathic, insightful people who don't want to hurt a fly, people who want to do the right thing, people who have convinced ourselves that we're not doing the right thing a lot of the time because we're making tiny infractions of our own codes that on the scale of what's going on this planet are very, very small, yet to me, they're very, very big. I can't live with myself doing these things being this way. It's so painful. The issue is, what do I do about this, and how did I get there in the first place, and why does all this stuff keep coming up? Most people that are sensitive have, or I would say the majority of people that are sensitive have experienced at least some, and often quite a bit, of trauma in their lives from their birth situation, from various experiences that have occurred. And at a core subconscious level, we have taken in the messages at deep levels that life is not really on my side, that I have to watch my butt at all times that if I'm not taking care of myself, I don't know what's going to happen to me. And like a fight or flight response, what might happen may not be good. Even if I've done a whole lot of healing, in fact, as I've done a whole lot of healing, the places where these kind of trauma responses arise come from deeper and deeper places. It leads to a lot of feelings like, I thought I worked through all this a long time ago, and how come it's back again? So my answer to that, as I have been discovering, is it is back again, but it's not what was before. It's back again at an even deeper level of this wound, of this pain. And why is it back? Because I have done so well in healing, and self-love, which I will get into, is the core of this healing. I have done so well, I am now able to take on healing at even deeper levels. And so what appears to be the same old stuff, the same old pattern, appears to be arising again. And we can get very down on ourselves as a result of this, feeling like I'm backsliding, I'm doing it again. I thought I was all over this. I can get angry. I can get angry at myself. I can get angry at other people. What's this all about? And so forth. What I've been learning over the last number of years is that attitude that I'm going around in a circle and I'm not getting anywhere and it's happening again and again and again is actually a perception. It appears that way. From the conscious place, from what I have known, from the way I look at things, that does seem to be what's happening. But in fact, that's not the totality of what's happening. And the gist of it is, very few of us have been trained or learned or exposed to another way of looking at things. And the core change, and this is where the spiritual part comes in and is very important. Because in this reality, in this human form, what we see around us, for the most part, is a gazillion people that really do not remember who and what they really are. They actually are. We see a lot of people, that are spiritual, and you could go spiritual because they're acting spiritual and all this, and you can have various opinions about all this. But what I have realized is wherever people are, they are in the process of waking up, of shaking off their old learned sense of who they are, what they are, why they are, and where they're going. And, it's a painful path at times with a lot of pitfalls and traps. And what may seem like, dead ends or moving into an alley from time to time, that like a dead end. But what I begin to realize is it isn't actually that way. Because what we're doing is having experiences, and some experiences are, aha, this is the way. And some experiences are, I thought this was the way, but I guess it isn't the way. And those are just as valuable in finding where we're going and who we are, as the wonderful, aha, happy, joyful moments. And we don't necessarily like them all that much because they can be very painful. So the amazing thing that I have begun understanding in the last number of years, which is very different than the way I looked at life previously, is that life really is on my side, and that everything that happens to me is actually of value and benefit for my growth. Now, I want to start with, I don't know, like a footnote here, because I mean everything, but I'm not going to sit around to someone who was raped and go, oh, that was really good for your growth. I'm not talking about that. On some vast cosmic level, there's value in that. But we as a human, it's going to take a long time to deal with that. And I'm not suggesting in any way that it should feel or be any different. In any similar kinds of experiences of abuse that anyone has had, nothing that I am saying is minimizing abuse in any way, or justifying it or making it okay. That's off the table. But I am speaking about experiences that we would consider painful, scary, uncomfortable, and so forth, that I don't like. And what I've learned with this is that the underlying reason we don't like, or I'll speak for myself, that I don't like the experiences is because I don't like the emotions they bring up in me that I have to feel if I open to the experiences. I'm talking about emotions. What's one that's up for me right now is a deeper level of dealing with shame. Many of us were deeply shamed in our youth, in our childhood, by people who cared about us. Why would somebody who cares about you shame you? Because when they were kids, they were shamed. It's normal. That's what they learned. That's how people live. That's what it's all about. To me, most people that are going to be on a call like this are people who in their heart want to do something good for the planet, for the world, for themselves, for people around them. And many of us, and the list I just gave, the part about doing something good for myself kind of comes second to doing good for others, because that's part of our social conditioning, that that it's selfish to take care of myself. No, I'm not talking about egoists, narcissists, and all this, but to me, those people have incredible pools of emptiness inside, and they have learned to fill it by making it all about themselves. The kind of people, but they don't really feel good about themselves. They kind of inflate themselves. And this symptom that's coming, the example that's coming to mind is the Wizard of Oz movie, where Toto the dog pulls back the curtain and there's this scrawny little man behind the curtain who is the voice of the great and powerful Oz. And he then says, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain while they're watching him. And that's kind of a narcissist in a way. Their strategy for feeling inadequate has been to make themselves superior and wonderful and immune from doing anything wrong. And they have convinced themselves of this. Most people that are on a talk like this, we are the opposite. We have egos not of superiority, but of inferiority, because we tend to feel inadequate. Like, oh my God, all the things I don't do right, didn't do right, didn't handle the way that I would really like to. Um, uh, we put ourselves down. We don't value ourselves. We don't value our wisdom. We don't value our love and our hearts. And our learning is to value ourselves. And this is what I'm speaking about. We have been taught, if you're on some kind of spiritual path, I've learned for decades about this karma thing. And, the explanation has been when bad or difficult things are happening in my life, it's because of what I now call crappy karma, like with a trademark after it. It's my crappy karma trademark. And why? Because then we can feel even more bad about ourselves. See, if I hadn't done all those screwed up things for the last fill in the blanks, 500,000, 3,000 years, then I would be in a whole other place. So I've learned a whole new way of looking at this. Everything that happens is for my benefit. Even really painful things that I would never consciously choose. They're gifts. They're gifts. They're the kind of gifts that, having learned, okay, so everything is a gift, and I can't say that I've embraced it 100%, but it's changing my subconscious mind. And this doesn't mean Yahoo that I have a really difficult time going on. It's more like, instead of being mad about it or shutting down or ranting about the injustice in the world, which, and there is injustice, but which is where I spend a whole lot of time. Now it's like, okay, I get somehow this situation is helping me. I don't understand how it's helping me, but I remain open inside because I want to understand it. A lot of times we don't understand it or we get upset by something because it literally, with the self-image or self-view that I have today now, I'm literally unable to know how to see this as something that is benefiting me. I can't do it. In other words, in order to understand the deeper meaning or purpose of some of the things that happen, I literally have to change. I have to become more than I have become more than I have seen myself as. And this, I find, is the unspoken hidden secret behind difficult circumstances that appear in my life. Because everything that is occurring in my life that's out of my comfort zone is actually here to expand me. Those patterns that, you look at your astrology and you have, 5 skip steps and whatever, Saturn on your south node and all kinds of things that seem like repeating themes of how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? A way to start looking at it is, what if those things are there to help me become aware of the very things that I am doing unconsciously, subconsciously, that are causing me to be on this, what feels like infinite loop? What if it's the waking up out of these beliefs, of this perspective, and they're trying to get my attention? One thing you can say about pain, and here I'm talking about emotional pain. One thing you can say about pain is it definitely gets my attention after a while. After You know, that's what addiction is trying to blot out pain. What if pain is actually here to help me? I have, you know, spoken to a fair number of people, just normal people. I start conversations with people and get them to talk about whatever's going on in them at times. And, you know, if they start talking about the difficulties they're having, and I come to like, well, you know, it seems to me like there's some pain here that needs to be felt or owned. And I have had a number of conversations abruptly end at that point. It's like, oh, I have to leave. See you later. We reject parts of ourself. We reject our pain. Painful. I don't want to feel it. I'm learning to feel it. I don't want to feel it because when I feel the pain, underneath that, for me, oftentimes is guilt and shame. I want to say, to me, the difference between guilt and shame is guilt is feeling bad about something I've done, and shame is feeling that I am bad. That's a very deep emotion, and it comes from childhood. If you've had a lot of it, if you've been made wrong, if you've been put down, if you've been not appreciated, if you've been overlooked, if you've been made to feel bad that you even want to be seen, heard, appreciated, understood, there's a lot of this there. How do we turn this around? This is what underlies everything that's going on in our lives. This is what we can learn to accept and to feel. We don't have to love it. That's a stretch. We definitely don't have to like it. I don't have to like the things that are going on that are painful. God is not sitting up there throwing darts at me because I'm making an example. I don't have cancer. But if I just got diagnosed with cancer and then I'm, you know, mad at God, God is not sitting there going, 10 more lifetimes for that one. It doesn't work that way. We have models of a reward and punishment system. If I do the right things, then I get the perks. It's not about that. It's not about a reward and punishment thing. It is about, I start with the radical statement, which I only ever really considered recently, which I heard someone saying, and it was like, wow. What if, seriously, what if I have never done anything wrong? Nothing. I may have done things that I can say, I'm really sorry I did that and I would never do it again. But what if it wasn't wrong? That is my cat, in case you're seeing shadows. What if it wasn't wrong? What if it was something I needed to do? Even for the abusers that we may have had in our life, and again, I am not justifying anybody's behavior, but what if they literally could not be any way other than the way they were? I'm really justified in being mad at it. Amen. But what if somehow, for reasons I can't understand, I needed to have some of these experiences? Not because I was being punished. That has to come off the table. We're not being punished. We're being helped to grow. I'm really clear on this. We are being helped to grow. It's our souls. It's the eternal part of us that is beyond birth, death, what I would call, I don't want to call it the illusions because they're real, but They're only part of the picture. In other words, if we really have an eternal soul, if you believe such things, then I existed before I was born, and I'm existing after I die. So somehow, and if you believe, which is evolutionary astrology, the reason all or most of us are here, that there's an evolution in that soul. As the soul is becoming more self-aware, then everything that occurs in this lifetime has got to be related to the evolution. Now, I feel like because of the, what I call the crappy karma perspective and the perspective of, you have 6 retrograde planets and whatever because, or a bunch of skip steps because you were going back and forth between this and that and you didn't get it. And now you have to work really hard and it's painful because you messed up before. I don't buy this anymore. What if it absolutely took 5 lifetimes to understand something that took 5 lifetimes to understand? What if the thing was so big, it wasn't possible to get it in 1 lifetime? What if the white people came to America and did all this stuff to the native people, not because the native people did anything wrong? For some ungodly reason, in the greater overall evolution of the planet, these things needed to occur. I'm not happy about them. I don't want to see it again, but it happened. And we're all the result of all that has happened so far. Oh, I want to get into this because this is where I get a little cosmic. Because to me, what's happening now is I've come to believe it's no longer a question of if the earth evolves or when the earth evolves, and it's up to the people to evolve the earth. I don't see it that way anymore. To me, the evolution has already occurred on the planet, And that's why we're seeing chaos, increasingly. Because the changes are afoot. Those of us that are likely to be on a call like this, in general, are more sensitive to the energies and the types of experiences I'm talking about. We're pioneers. We're as much pioneers as people that came over here on tiny little ships from Europe when they thought the world was flat to expand out from what they knew into the unknown. We are again going into the unknown, and I can tell you from experience that to me, the unknown, the core of the unknown is love. We are held in a universe that is very loving. And for every difficult experience that we have to go through on the other side or in a greater frame, we are held in the arms of love, just like a mom holds a child that has to go through some difficult things for its own growth. The more I open up, the more I realize the truth of this. This doesn't mean that my nervous system isn't going to go crazy at times when I get triggered, when I get traumatized and forget all this and start freaking out and being angry and all this. And that's okay too. That's part of the growth. We are learning how to toss off this conditioning, this looking at life in what I call like a 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional perspective. We're waking up, we're in the process of becoming conscious of our souls, not starting to look at it not so much as I'm a person who has a soul, as I am a soul. I have manifested this person, and I am merging with this person. A whole lot of the reason that all kinds of chaos and difficult experiences, and if you feel depressed, not knowing what to do, loss of meaning in things that have been important, feeling like being alone, feeling alienated, all this. These, to me, are part of the shift that's going on as our egos, our personalities start to shift. This ego, this personality has been responsible for keeping me alive in this body, similarly for 7 billion other people. When we start to realize nothing can happen to me that's bad, and there's my beliefs anyway, you cannot die 1 minute before it's the time that you're going to die, and you cannot live 1 minute after the time you're going to die. And all dying is kind of stepping in out of a chapter in a book or an act in a play and preparing for the next chapter or act, whether it's going to be in another body, on this planet, on some planet 2 trillion light years, we don't know. But we do what we do it with passion, we do it with love and commitment as best we can. And we realize life has, this is where I get to the how do I accept it? How do I work with it? Whatever is happening is intended to happen. Life sees the overall, the big picture. It's like if we were flying over a terrain in a plane a couple thousand feet off the ground, we'd see the bigger picture of what's going on. We're walking around on the ground. We don't see the bigger picture. It comes down to building a trust. We have all built mistrust for very good reasons. We have experienced abuse, abandonment, betrayal, all the rest of it, disillusionment, all the rest of it. Now it's about, we're in the process of rebuilding trust, looking at life from a very different perspective. That's what's going on. That's why we often feel detached, uncertain, unclear as to what am I doing, where am I going, even who am I now? I don't even recognize myself. I don't mean physically. I don't even feel like the same person I used to be. What's going on? These are signs of this growth, this change that is occurring. That's what's going on. It's a very discomforting process at times. It also hasn't really caught on yet in the mass mind that this is what's going on. So if we're going to be Libran types like me, we can compare and contrast. I can compare and contrast myself to what's going on around me, going, why am I so weird and different? How come I can't relate to this? Everybody else seems to be doing fairly okay with it. It's because we're being called to be pioneers. You know, I've noticed a number of the volunteers have first house stuff, Pluto in the first house, planets in the first house. You're pioneers. We're being called to this stuff. We're being called to usher in what's new. There's a lot of us, there's millions of people with this mission, with this inner purpose, but we're far from the majority at this point. But we are setting the seeds, the stage for what's coming on this planet in the future. Because we've already won. It's already done. It's a done deal. Love has won. Most people don't know it yet. And we're going to see many signs around that don't look like Lev has won, because it scares the bejeebus out of a lot of people to feel themselves slipping away. The me that they have known, no longer working. And so I got to blame it on somebody. Thus the rise of immigrant bashing, you know, liberal bashing, all the various things, because all these changes are somebody's fault. That's the way a certain mindset has to deal with it. But we're here, to me, I'm here for something different. And I get clearer and clearer about that. That's why I give the talks that I do. And that's the way I look at charts, and want to talk about experiences people have had, personal experiences that they have had, to help them gain more insight on why they had to go through things that may have been very difficult. With that, I want to switch over to Monica. Let me unmute you, or you can unmute you if you.
I'm here. Hi.
Great. Hi. So Monica wrote me a long and very personal piece about the. I have the feeling that this just kind of tumbled out of you when you started writing it. I could be wrong.
No, I've been very aware of what's going on, but I don't ever write with a direct narrative. I go here and there because I am very sensitive and perceptive. So I just when I wrote it, yes, but this information, I've been very much aware of it.
Yeah.
So that's when I saw the title, I'm like, I'm in, like immediately, how do I do this?
Yeah. Well, you know, so I'm not going to read all of it, and I'm not going to, I got some highlights. Actually, what I'm going to set, I'm going to set a timer this time, because my tendency is to get involved with somebody I'm talking to and then not leave enough time for other people. So I'm going to avoid doing that. So Monica's been going through, she had a pretty lengthy marriage, and it ended, and she began realizing, as she put it, challenges for growth related to having codependent tendencies. So this is my point. This is an awareness. So why do I keep repeating these same patterns? Why do I keep pulling the same characters into my life that come up with the same issues? One day it goes, perhaps I have something to do with this. So that's the first step of noticing. At that point, do I know what to do about it? Not really, because I've been doing the best I know how to do with what I have been given to work with. So I set to work finding people that seem to make sense, that seem like they have clues or pieces to add to help me learn how to see things from a different perspective. Because I start to see it's the perspective I'm seeing them from that's the root of the issue. So I'll just say she got to a low point out of this. I would like to look at you and look at your chart at the same time. I don't know if I can do that. So let me get your chart up. Just a second.
If you want, I can summarize a little bit what I wrote, because sure. I know. So basically, yeah, I had a very long marriage, and then I jumped from after 20 years to meet somebody who was exactly like the same person and same circumstances as the one before. But I was not aware of it. I just jumped into that and then started feeling a lot of, I was suffering a lot because I didn't understand what was going on. So it went downhill from there on until a point that I said, if I don't do something with myself, and I'm talking about a person who's been meditating for a long time and doing a lot of spiritual work. And even then I had no idea how to get out of it. Yes. So I found evolutionary astrology. I started studying with Simon, and it was great. It was just like, oh, okay, this is what's going on. So I started really seeing it from another perspective, from outside. I'm looking at myself and seeing how I repeat patterns, and then give some language to it. And by giving the correct language to it and understanding the archetypes, I kind of like found I don't know how to say, like the map of my psyche. So it's been amazing because I discover even more. I'm not there yet, but I've been able to surrender to a lot of things that are happening, because now I feel more less fearful about it, because I know I can handle it better. 2 years ago, I just wanted to jump outside of a window. I mean, literally, I wanted to do that. But astrology came around, and I asked for help, and and help came, but I had to do a lot of work too. It's not given.
Yes. And I want to put your chart up so people can, just a second, I have this here someplace. Let's see where did I put it? There we go. So I'm doing this in a new way. Please bear with me. I want to share this one. And we need to start this. There. So this is Monica's natal chart. And, I was taken by Pluto, Uranus, conjunct Virgo, 8th house, Chiron, 2nd house, what is it, Saturn? Saturn is on her Pluto polarity point, 1st house, in Pisces, no less, and Chiron also in Pisces. So to me, and a Scorpio moon. So, and then an 11th house, South Node, Capricorn, which these indicate to me like very sensitive soul, and that Pluto and Virgo generation, not brimming with self-confidence, aware of the lacks and, the imperfections that supposedly are within me and so forth. And then with the South Node, very interesting in the 11th house in Capricorn, because it has been breaking out of conditioning, but it's also because of Capricorn there has been very conditioned. And so the various themes that could come up inside from this of, I want to establish 5th house North Node, Cancer. I want to establish my own authority, and especially when younger, it would be quite likely like, but do I really have the right to do this? Is it the right thing to do? What are the obligations I need to live up to? But everything in this chart, or not everything, but things in this chart are pointing over, just as you're saying, to becoming aware of dependencies and realizing your own individuality and the gifts for you looking at this, I would say is you have, you know, very watery in a lot of ways, a really deep, sensitive, emotional nature that would not be, this planet would be challenging to expose, to reveal. It takes courage. And that would be the point with the polarity point of having the Saturn, first house, Pisces, to be willing to come out, to be willing to expose, to be willing to share, as you're doing with what you wrote and by talking here. And I also notice the, you know, Mars in Aries, well, 4 planets in the 3rd house, not surprising you wrote a long piece. But also that's part of the gifts of like sharing your journey. And also the 3 planets in Taurus, along with the Chiron in the 2nd house, the wounds of establishing myself, knowing my own value, my own mission, my own purpose, my own worth, that I have to give and to share. And using your life and your journey, you know, to help other people who are in various phases of their own version of that journey. She said earlier this year, she felt transparent. No one was seeing and validating my creative self. She's an accomplished visual artist. Has been doing readings, yet experienced fears of scarcity, inadequacy, and lack of purpose. Realized she was afraid of showing who she was, feared rejection, abandonment. She needed to leave behind some things that she had been with for a long time. All of this is courage. And I relate this to what I was talking about the waking up process, because we are shedding our old identities. And we can correlate it to transits, and they certainly have something to do with transits. But my point is, this is occurring to everybody. And the transits point out where it's personal for the person we're looking at. Because these are the symptoms, oh, and also about experiencing fears of scarcity and inadequacy, lack of purpose, and so forth. This again would be like, I thought I'd already dealt with that stuff. You know, where's this coming from? This goes to what I said earlier about things coming up at a deeper level. These are actually, I like to call them humorously, they're graduation presents. They're not exactly the kind of graduation present most of us would let people know we want, but they're signs that I have done enough work that I am now able to deal with the deeper levels of my wounds, my pain. And so they begin arising. Now, because most people, most of us are not aware of this, we have not been educated that this is how things actually work, we can tend to think, you know, I get that it wasn't your response, but many people can tend to feel they're backsliding when stuff comes up again. Right, I get that that isn't you. I'm just making this as a general.
But I want to only say one thing. There was a moment for a period of few days around mid-April that I thought that, and I feared it so much, but I did a very Piscean thing. I was near the beach and I went inside of the water and I completely surrendered. I said, okay, I'll do it. if this is what I came to do, I'll do it. I'll give it up. I'll give up whatever ideas was holding me back. And it was something very incredible happened. I just got this release. And then I came back to New York and I started doing very little things that led me to where I am right now, which is, but if I hadn't done that release point, I would have been still going like I did something wrong, because I was doing that for a little bit. I was blaming myself that I probably had made a mistake, I don't know, 2 months ago or 5 months ago. So I no longer feel like that. And you're very right about saying what you said at the very beginning. It is not about like, you know, feeling that I did something that is not right. This is like when you accept it and embrace it, then you understand that this is why I'm here.
Yes. 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 And right. Yes. This is, I'm not here for, I like to say it as, I'm not here for the normal things that the majority of people seem to be here for that interest them. These are the people, the group, what some people call the first wave, that are we're specifically here to ground all these changes that I'm talking about, to start taking them out of the ethers and the astral and putting them in flesh and blood. And over extended periods of time, could be hundreds of years, I don't know. But out of this, we come up with a different planet. As the way we see ourselves and the way we teach our children to see themselves changes, and this starts rooting. Now, along the way, the old stuff comes up, like you were saying. I mean, you went through it in 2 days. Well, there's people that are dragging with this for 10 and 15 years. So it's, to me, a sign of where you are inside yourself, that you got it like that. But I definitely, it's about, it's, you know, as I put it like, all right, I don't know why I'm here. I've had all these wonderful ideas about why I'm here, and you know, they've gotten me to a certain place, but it's my graduation present. Now I have to admit, beyond this point, I don't know why I'm here. And the fact that I'm not inspired anymore by the things that got me here, that I was doing, is kind of a sign. One can feel from that, well, now I'm depressed. Why? You know, and if you go, they can put you on pills, so to speak, to undepress you. And realizing that feeling lost, uncertain, even depressed at times is actually part of a spiritual awakening. Well, they didn't teach us that in New Age 101, you know. Waking up was supposed to make us feel better and full of joy and not feel any more pain and all this. And it's like, well, that isn't what it is. It doesn't work like that. But my relationship to those experiences is different. As you said, whatever it is I'm supposed to do, I'm there. You know I'm going to run into more places inside me that still have some resistance to that. I get it. And this is the part also I haven't mentioned, but it's like I'm learning. It's about loving those parts of myself and not trying to pound the crap out of them, because they're simply hurt, wounded, scared parts of me. They're not bad. They never were bad. And loving them and holding them and letting them know that you've got their fears covered, you got their back, actually helps them to feel safe enough to just let go. This is kind of the opposite of the way I was ever taught. You know, I wanted to be as far away from those sort of feelings as I could. Now it's like, oh my gosh, if I never did anything wrong, then these are just confused, hurt parts of myself, and I can hold space for them. Let me see, what else here?
I think I wanted to say something about confusion and about like coming to terms with the confusion. For a while, I was labeling like, oh, I'm confused and I don't understand what's going on as a bad thing. But now I started to feel that the confusion was absolutely necessary for me to go through. Yes. So in order to come out and see things in a different light. And my confusion is very much based on the way I merge with others intimately. That's why I give all my power away, because I just open the checkbook and I go, kill me. And that's when I just really, really give away who I am. So now I'm paying a lot of attention, like how I interact with people, all kinds of relationships, to see where I'm really like opening the checkbook and just signing and saying, wait, because I am here to do something else, not merging and, going with the little fairy. So, but because I can get very confused, I'm in that situation. I completely let go.
Yes. That's awesome. Yes. That's, that's Chiron in Pisces. And that's your Pluto polarity point. And learning that lesson, or not even learning it, but becoming aware of it. Really, that awareness just keeps the whole process moving, because now I can recognize when I'm perhaps tempted by some old issues. And they will, they will arise from time to time, karmic, whatever you want to call it, people that are, new and all that. But again, I don't see this anymore as this stuff about you're being tested by life to see if you really, it's the next phase of feeling whole within ourselves as to who and what we are.
Completely.
What is she's saying, right? Feeling a new baby, a new life coming. Oh, this was something with her ex-husband. She got triggered by some painful experiences that occurred that set off, submerged.
Yeah, I learned that my ex-husband was going to have a baby, and we didn't part in good ways. So that triggered everything. And then like a few weeks ago, actually like 2 weeks ago after the eclipses, I started thinking, who are the babies that are going to be born in this batch? Because I also have the North Node in Cancer. So I was thinking, and all of a sudden I have the feeling and the image of this new baby that I don't think I'm ever going to meet. And I just had to thank him or her. Say, you triggered something very deep in me, and I have to thank you.
Something even better to add to that, because you can visualize this baby growing up to be an awakened soul.
Well, I already talked to this soul, like, hey,
and
whatever.
And not letting the father get away with any crap.
No, I don't care about the father. I mean, he's going to give crap to the father, that's for sure. But that's not my doing, But no, but it was really beautiful to be able to understand the energy that made me very angry. A few months ago, I was very angry. And then I said, I cannot live with this anger anymore. So I, without even recognizing what I was doing, it just came to me. And I was able to speak to the soul and say, thank you. Like, so grateful that this is happening. So grateful.
That is awesome. All right. We need to close this part. Do you have anything else you'd like to close with?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I am very grateful to you and to everybody. This is beautiful. And we're just heading to beautiful times. I'm ready for whatever's coming next. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Very wonderful meeting you.
Thank you.
So next, Amanda is next. Let me stop this sharing. Is Amanda here?
I'm here.
There you are. Hello.
Hi.
So Amanda has been, what did she say? She responded to my call for volunteers because she got an intuition and she's learned to follow them. And it feels like she's coming into an integration period, and talking astrology helps. It was, after I put your chart up, I'll say, but it was interesting because I read your write-up, and as I was looking at your chart, well, we should say she had to have open abdominal surgery, which wound up being ovarian cancer. And they took out the tumor and her reproductive organs, and she was good, but she had complications from that surgery and had to have a second one a few months ago, which was rough and difficult. And that, she knows it's part of a process and is learning how to accept and move through things and using EA for that. And that's really, I just want to acknowledge the courage. I know you had to do these things, but it takes a lot of courage to go through them and come out the other side and feeling at least at peace with the process and what it's brought into your life. And I want to acknowledge that.
No, thank you.
You'll see after I get your chart up that I was really, I get things sometimes, they sort of symbolically appear to me.
Yeah.
And when I read what you had written, and it said I had to have open abdominal surgery, and the word open sprung out at me, and I highlighted it in yellow. Let me get your chart up, and then I'll say some, oh, you know what I didn't do is set the timer, just a second. Where are we here? Okay, let's do like 15. Let's see. Okay, step 1, step 2. And now I need to start this. There. So I found this really interesting because I can see, you know, just even by looking at you, that there's a lot of sensitivity within you. And in the way this chart is laid out, we have Pluto in the 3rd house and a Scorpio moon in the 3rd house. And what else was I looking at? Venus in Pisces, in particular, in the 8th house, and Mercury in Pisces. And what I got, and the 4th house, we have Uranus in Scorpio. And between the 3rd house and the 4th house, how do I put this? There's a lot of emotion in you. Mm-hmm. And I mean that in the best way. And I would say I'm going to say scary, but maybe it wasn't scary, but something along that line. To feel exposed, to expose this, this sensitivity, this emotion. And so it's kind of been set up of hanging out, tending to hang out a bit in the mental, mm-hmm. like as a shield. And that's not bad or wrong. It's like a strategy for, first of all, does this make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing I would add there is that, I guess almost 10 years ago, I set the intention to come into my emotional body because I started learning about astrology and realized how much I identified with Aquarius, but saw the Scorpio there too. And so the process of the past 10 years of coming into my emotional body has been intensely visceral. And I'm always surprised at how deep the emotion goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what struck me about when you wrote open abdominal surgery. because it's like open. Because sometimes things strike me as very symbolic, and that struck me as very symbolic. And especially the word open, because it's like there's a need to open, and it's like spiritual surgery, so to speak, that has occurred, that has been occurring. I also wanted to acknowledge, I was realizing I mean, a tumor is enough, but for a woman, having the reproductive organs removed is pretty big. I mean, very big. In terms of, what do I say, self-image. Yeah. And
yeah, I mean, for me, the way that in short, the way that came through was that having my reproductive organs taken out wasn't like at the emotional level, like in terms of grief and loss, or like wanting to have children and not being able to, that wasn't an issue for me. It felt very freeing in that way. What's been problematic and what I'm still dealing with 2 years later is that I was put into surgical menopause, which is instant menopause at the age of 37. And finding like healthcare practitioners who can help me to address all the changes in my physical body has been deeply frustrating. And one of those processes of knowing that I just have to kind of like keep going through it and keep advocating for myself through all of it.
Yes, exactly. And that's the hit that I got from it, is it's actually about, somehow it's a little ironic, but embracing your femininity. Because the mental parts are either, what we say, either tend towards either being masculine or at least kind of non-gender. And that this embracing, in other words, you have to stand up for yourself, and yet it's the femininity you're standing up for. I don't know what you've run into with the practitioners, but the medical system is not, I would say, is very, not that it's all males, but the whole system is kind of comes out of the male mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, so there's something in that for you. Do you write?
Yeah, I'm a practicing astrologer, so part of that is writing a lot. Not as much as I would like to, but yes.
Well, that's what I would see, that being able to use that experience to help and benefit other people, and through that medium of writing would be very aligned.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the moon opposing the Chiron right now. So, where are you now with this, or if you want to talk about it, where are you now with the process over the last few months that you wrote about?
Yeah, it feels like, I mean, so I had the first surgery 2 years ago, but I started catching kind of wind of the ovarian cancer in 2015. So it's been a longer process than that. And this last surgery was an open abdominal surgery with a 14-inch incision, and then the incision about a week later started bleeding, so they had to open it back up again to take some, just a part of it, open it up again to take some blood clots out, which meant that I had an open wound because they can't stitch it back up at that point. They have to just wait for it to heal from the inside out, which is incredibly stressful because the risk of infection is very high. So it was very high stress recovery, and in the middle of it, my housing situation kind of imploded, and I had to move very unexpectedly, while I couldn't lift anything and had no money to move, and essentially had to put a call out to my community saying, I need help. And the way that people were there and showed up for me and came forward, like some friends came forward with a place for me to live for the next 6 months while I kind of like get my feet back under me. And I went from everything being so stressful to, today, about 3 weeks into feeling like I'm finally stabilizing. Everything feels so much more tolerable, and I feel more like myself than I have in years, even though I'm still very much dealing with all the physical stuff and trying to find doctors that can help. And what I've leaned into, which I think that this is very much transiting Pluto and Saturn squaring my natal Pluto from the 6th house cusp right now, is I have to have routines. Like I have to go to bed at 10 o'clock every night, and I feel better when I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and kind of like take the first couple of hours of the day to meditate and go on walks and all these things that I never ever thought that I would do or want to do. So I'm just kind of like regrouping and trying to figure out what, not even trying to figure out what the next steps are, just waiting for things to be revealed as I enjoy feeling better again.
So can you say a little about how this topic is being okay with stuff you may not be okay with, and what you have learned from these experiences in that regard?
Sure. I think with the caveat that sometimes like I don't feel like I'm okay with it, but even
Sure.
even that's applicable for my personal situation and what's going on in the world in general. But there's still that kind of overarching theme of like, it will work out. And one of my core wounds that I've uncovered is that lack of trust, in myself, in the universe, in my guides, in other people. And through this whole experience, I've really had to trust. Like I've had to trust surgeons, and I've had to trust my body, and I've had to I've gotten the opportunity to really develop my relationship with my guides, which has been, a long time coming. I've been trying to do that for 15 years now. But especially with this last surgery, just really tuning in to the spiritual guides that I'm working with and having them show up so clearly and strongly, because I had a feeling going into this surgery that it wasn't going to be the best experience of my life. But even going back to the first surgery, when I was pretty much told the chances of it being cancer were, less than 1%. And my little like warning bells were saying it is, and everybody in my life, all the doctors were saying it's not. So when I came out of the first surgery and found out that they had taken out my reproductive organs because they learned that it was cancer, but having to wait to see what stage it was, and because ovarian cancer is not a good diagnosis. And at that point, just having to be like, you know what, there is nothing I can do about this situation other than go through it, whatever that means. And there was such a grace in that. And knowing that I've developed so many tools in the past several years, and being able to like apply all of them and use all of them and heal a lot of my Aquarian karma. Just seeing the way that my different communities came together to support me.
Mm.
It was really magical in a lot of ways. And so like kind of restoring that connection with divinity, while at the same time having those moments where I'm just like, really? this is what's going to happen now?
Yeah, that's what I've noticed. I mean, I haven't met too many Scorpio moons that don't have trust issues.
Well, but I will say the other thing I've really noticed is that my ability to be in my triggers and know that that's what's happening has really gotten better, alongside my awareness that I can't stop the emotional response. Like, it's there. I can keep myself from lashing out. I can keep myself from causing harm, but like the emotions are huge when I'm triggered, and I can't contain them.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big piece.
But there's still that Aquarius awareness in there that that's what's happening.
It's awesome. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to wind this one. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Pivoting. And we're going to wind this down for now, and we will be back in 15 minutes for the second part of this talk. Thank you. Oh, don't leave the meeting. Just we'll stop the recording.